What's up, Pittsburgh Falcons and friends? I'm Joe Flanagan, and welcome back to my kitchen. Remember a few weeks ago when you were stocking up for that quarantine and you were looking at all those healthy snacks that you had the goals and best intentions of eating, but it's a few weeks in and those apples are still chilling on that counter? What do you do with them? They're about to go bad and you don't really want to bite into them. Well, fear not. I will be telling you what to do with them today. You know what they say, an apple a day keeps the corona away, so definitely don't throw it away. Even if it's got bumps or bruises on it, there's so many things that we can do with them. And today, we're going to be using them to make apple pie granola bars. Ooh! For today's recipe, you're going to need 2 apples. Make sure you've washed the dust of neglect off of them. But yep, 2 apples washed, and doesn't matter if they're old or got bumps and bruises on it. You can add a 3rd apple if you want to add a little decorative flair in the end, but don't worry, you don't have to. 7 tablespoons of butter. Don't be tricked, that is not a whole stick of butter. I cut off the small little last tablespoon. 2 1/4 cups of oats. 3 tablespoons of honey. I do have honey, but I prefer maple syrup, so I said, why not? But feel free to use maple syrup, honey, or any kind of similar thing you got like that. Brown sugar. How much was the brown sugar? 1/3 cup brown sugar, yes. All right, moving on. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, teaspoons, not tablespoons, I almost made that mistake, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. You can also add 1/4 of a teaspoon of cardamom, but I don't have that, so I didn't include it. Whatever, it'll be fine. And then I also had this container of crusty raisins that have probably been sitting around for a few months, and I figured, why not throw that in there too, so feel free. Also, if you're thinking to yourself, geez, my cooking station's never that organized when I get ready to cook something, don't worry, no one's ever is. That only exists in cooking shows. And as far as tools that you might need, you're gonna need a cutting board, a cheese grater, and if you don't have one of these, don't worry, because you can just use a good old knife, a 9x13 baking pan, and a medium-sized saucepan. And disclaimer, if you don't have the ingredients or tools needed for today's episode, don't fret, because there's so many recipes out there that you can use to do something with your old apples. Don't worry, hope is not lost. So to prep your baking pan, you can line it with parchment paper, and feel free to add a little extra so it's hanging over the edge. I don't have parchment paper and resources are tight, so I've got this Pam baking flour spray that I'm just gonna jazz on up, and I'm gonna rub it on the outsides and just lather it up. And you can use this with butter too, maybe even olive oil if you're feeling jazzy, but this is just really to prevent the bars from sticking to the pan. So while I get this off my hands, I'm gonna turn you off. Now, in prepping your apples, after you wash them, I took a little bit of the skin off. I didn't go crazy or felt super pressured. I think it's fine if you get a little skin in there. And hey, don't judge what my apples look like. They're a little gross. But hey, that's the whole purpose of this video. There's no judgment here. We will then serve these to other people and they'll never know. Your next question might be, who the heck owns a cheese grater? Well, I do come from an Italian household, which, go figure, my last name's Flanagan, right? And cheese is life, so I do have a cheese grater, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna set it up on this little setting, if you do have a grater, and I'll show you option B. And then you're just gonna run it down the cheese grater so you get these nice, fine little pieces. And again, if you don't have a cheese grater, what I would do is cut them up, and then chop them in fourths, and then chop them again, so that you get these nice, again, little tiny pieces. So I just grated my apples, and honestly, it was such an oddly satisfying experience. I highly recommend that everyone gets a cheese grater just so they can experience it too. But lift up your cheese grater to reveal this beautifully shaved pile of apple slices. It smells like a apple orchard massacre in here, but delightful nonetheless. And I imagine you could do this with a potato to get a nice hash brown texture. That just came to me. That's beautiful. Cheese graters for everyone once this madness is done. Alright, next phase. Add our medium saucepan. In this saucepan, we have our butter, our brown sugar, and our maple syrup. And we're gonna stir it slowly over medium heat until it's one big happy melted family. Now that it's melted, you're gonna turn it off the heat and just remove it from the heat and maybe slide it over here. Once you've moved your melted butter, sugar, and maple syrup to another burner, instantly add the grated apples, your oats, your cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, and optional cardamom. And I even tossed in my crusty raisins right now too, and I'm just gonna stir it up until it's nice and combined. Now that your cooking mixture is done and stirred and nice and combined, you're gonna take that from here and put it into this baking dish. Use the back of a wooden spoon to press that down so that everything's nice and packed in and evenly spread. Bonus, it even makes a fun little squishy sound that you're either going to love or you're either going to hate. Voila. Remember that third optional decorative apple I mentioned at the beginning of this video? Well, here's where that comes into play. You just slice it thinly and you just press it a little bit into the top layer, not too much, just resting on the top. And now we're ready to put it in the oven. And don't these look like fun little deer tracks? I think so. I know you did too. And then you put your creation in the oven and you set it for 30 minutes. Don't forget to set your timer, folks. Don't forget to set your timer. There's nothing worse than that moment you remember you forgot to set the timer and you have no idea what time it is. If you find yourself asking, what can I do in these 30 minutes? Well, I might recommend cleaning up your cooking space. Because you could do what I tend to do often, which is not let it sit there and then hate yourself later. So do yourself a favor and pick up your cooking space today. Yeah! They're done. Don't they look fantastic? Alright, so you're gonna grab them. Ooh, baby. And then you're just gonna let them sit there and cool for about 15 or so minutes. Yeah, we know you're done. Alright, at this point, it's been 15 minutes and your apple pie granola bars are probably cooled down just enough. You just want it to get so it's a little less soft and gooey and a little more stiff and easy to cut. Yes. So, if you were one of the folks who had parchment paper at this point, you can use two hands and gently pop it out of the pan and put it on a cutting board so you can chop it that way. I did not have parchment paper, so what I'm gonna do is switch my camera view. What I'm gonna do is cut these apples, or this apple bar, if you will, into thirds that way and third this way, leaving me with 12. For all you math whizzes out there that might have raised an eyebrow at that last video clip, allow me to rephrase. What I meant to say is you're gonna cut this way into thirds and this way into fourths. I am a Fitchburg State alumni, and I am proud. Allow me to demonstrate this cutting method. The only way I can describe it is as so, just follow that technique. Try to keep it as neat as you can. And we'll be done with this in no time. Now, once you've cut your bars into the rows that you want, you're going to take a fork and just work around the edges and just use it to assist you in popping it out. And if you need to take the knife and just neaten it up a little bit to get it unstuck, go for it. And then you can move it to your Tupperware container for storage or right to your plate. Also, FYI, I know we're calling them granola bars, but they're really just a glorified apple crisp. Have it for breakfast, have it for dinner, throw some ice cream on it, throw some whipped cream on that, do whatever you want with it. But no matter what you do, feel good while you're eating it. And now for everyone's favorite part, enjoying it. Oh my God, it's terrible. Just kidding, it's wonderful, and so are you. Thanks for coming back, thanks for tuning in, and we hope to catch you next time. Until then, you keep it classy, Fitchburg.